Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Front Page by AM Network. I'm Antara. It is a day of major reality checks across the tech and financial sectors, and we are tracking all of it and much, much more. But first, a massive update for the developers and AI builders watching this segment right now. It is time to step out of the background loop. Google Cloud and AIM have officially announced Code Kitchen Season 1, India's very first coding reality show. We are talking a 10 lakh rupee prize pool, the season best trophy and national video fame across an 8-episode video reality series. Registrations are live right now at codekitchen.aim.media. Submit your concept note and secure your spot today. With that, here are the headlines. OpenAI's first custom inference chip, Jalapeno, delivered up to 1.9 times higher throughput per watt and up to 3.6 times lower latency than Nvidia's flagship Blackwell systems. Apple launches M6 Mac Mini and M5 Ultra, betting on faster local AI, massive memory bandwidth and on-device inference as cloud costs rise. OpenAI is taking its first direct step towards hardware self-reliance. The company officially presented the first performance benchmarks at the Hot Chips 2026 conference for Jalapeno, its in-house AI inference chip. It has been co-developed with Broadcom. Tested on the public Inference X benchmark suite maintained by SemiAnalysis, the engineering sample chip evaluated full end-to-end inference processing across GPT OSS 120 billion, DeepSeek R1 670 billion, and Kimi K2.5 trillion parameters. Now, across peak operational workloads, Jalapeno delivered 1.5 to 1.9 times more AI work per watt, while cutting end-to-end latency by 1.7 to 3.6 times compared to Nvidia Blackwell GB300 systems. On highly interactive workloads, performance gains reached 2.1 to 4.1 times higher output. In one low-latency test on DeepSeek R1, the chip exceeded 700 tokens per second per user at single concurrency. OpenAI chip chief Richard Ho noted that while most processors specialize strictly in high throughput or low latency, Jalapeno addresses both domain constraints simultaneously. Built on TSMC's 3-nanometer process node with an aggressive 9-month development cycle, each Jalapeno package pairs its compute die with 6 HBM4 memory stacks, delivering 216 gigabytes of memory at 15.4 terabytes per second bandwidth. By keeping the model state and KV cache local to the processing cores, the architecture eliminates data movement delays to handle both prefill and decode phases for dynamic agentic AI workloads. OpenAI, in fact, revealed that Jalapeno's benchmark lead widened even further when running its internal frontier reasoning models. Operating at a package power rating of 700 watts with sustained power under 550 watts during testing, the ASIC minimizes raw energy demands to lower massive data center running costs. The chip is strictly designed for model inference, which means answering user requests, and does not perform model training, where Nvidia graphics processors remain unchallenged. Industry analysts point out key comparison limits, noting that Jalapeno was benchmarked against Nvidia's GB300, while Nvidia's next-generation Vera Rubin architecture using HBM4 memory has begun customer shipments. OpenAI plans to deploy initial Jalapeno units to its internal infrastructure by late 2026, while confirming it will continue buying heavy hardware volumes from Nvidia and other compute providers. Development on follow-on custom hardware is moving fast, with OpenAI expecting its second-generation chip to complete finals design tape-out within months alongside early conceptual work on a third-generation architecture. Ladies and gentlemen, before I give you the front-page take on the story, OpenAI publishing benchmarks for Jalapeno isn't about replacing Nvidia overnight, because it is a rapid move to regain pricing leverage in the hyper-expensive AI inference layer. By designing custom silicon alongside Broadcom that targets the dual bottlenecks of high throughput and low latency, OpenAI is proving that custom ASICs can out-optimize general-purpose GPUs on pure inference tasks. Even as OpenAI remains tied to Nvidia for model training and immediate compute volume, having working in-house chips fundamentally changes how the world's largest AI company manages its long-term power and operational costs. The question I would like for you to answer is this: Will custom inference chips like Jalapeno force GPU makers to slash hardware pricing as major AI labs build their own specialized silicon? Or will the global compute shortage slow it all down? Let us know what you think in the comment section below. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Front Page by AM Network. Like, share and subscribe, and always remember, think AI, think AI. Apple has launched two very different chips from two very different AI jobs. The new M6 brings Apple's first 2-nanometer chip to the Mac Mini, starting at $899. And at the opposite end, the M5 Ultra uses Apple's first quad-die architecture with massive memory bandwidth designed to run frontier AI models locally. So why launch a brand new 2nm chip and a completely different 4-die design at the same time? The M6 is Apple's efficiency play. Built on 2nm process, it essentially packs a 12-core CPU, 12-core GPU, and dual 16-core neural engine, with up to 32 GB of unified memory and 170 GB per second of memory bandwidth. Apple says the neural engine can deliver up to twice the peak compute of previous generations. And there, of course, is a crucial AI upgrade here. M6 can process FP8 natively in hardware rather than relying on software handling. That's important because lower precision formats like FP8 can make AI inference more memory efficient and faster. So Apple isn't simply making the M6 faster. It is essentially designing the chip around running AI efficiently on the device. And that's why the Mac Mini makes sense as the first home for M6. Now forget the M6 for a moment here. M5 Ultra isn't a bigger M6 per se. It's a fundamentally different architecture. Apple takes two dual-die M5 Max chips and connects them through Ultra Fusion, creating its first quad-die M-series chips. That gives it up to 36 CPU cores, 80 GPU cores, and 512 GB of unified memory and 1.2 terabytes per second of memory bandwidth. And that bandwidth is the point. Large AI models need enormous amounts of data moving through memory. With M5 Ultra, Apple says developers can run models with hundreds of billions of parameters entirely on device. Multiple Mac studios can also be linked together over Thunderbolt 5 for even larger workloads. Think of it this way. M6 is about making local AI practical on a mainstream desktop. M5 Ultra is about pushing the ceiling of how much AI you can really run without leaving the desktop. One uses 2-nanometer efficiency, neural engines, and higher memory bandwidth. The other uses 4 silicon dies and an enormous unified memory pool. Apple is effectively covering both ends of the local AI market. Now, before I give you the front page take on the story, meet IBM Bob, your AI coding buddy that turns big ideas into working solutions and faster. Code, create, and ship with Bob, because building should be more than just a vibe. With that, here's the front page take. Apple's real bet here isn't simply faster Macs. It is that AI inference is moving closer to the user and memory bandwidth is becoming just as important as raw chip speed. M6 makes smaller local models more practical. M5 Ultra makes enormous models possible on a desktop. And that could matter as more developers look for private, local AI without constantly paying for cloud inference. So here's the question. Is Apple building the next generation of personal AI computers, or will cloud AI remain too powerful to beat? Let us know what you think in the comment section below. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Front Page by AM Network. Like, share, and subscribe, and always remember, think AI, think AI.
Thank you so much, Antara, for your wonderful insights. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, front page was all set now to deliver the headlines again. But this time around, it's going to be India-centric. So here they are. AM Intelligence orders 9,000 Nvidia Rubin GPUs for Hyderabad AI factory, betting $8 billion on gigawatt-scale compute and India's global AI infrastructure ambitions. Wind energy major Suzlon Group has initiated operations on 1,325 megawatt wind energy projects in Anantapur, involving an investment of 10,500 crore rupees. Bengaluru-based Airbound has raised $37 million in a Series A round to scale commercial production of its autonomous tail-sitter aircraft and deploy a 10,000 flight per day drone delivery network across Andhra Pradesh. Cognite CEO Girish Rishi will join Front Page exclusively on site live to discuss the company's $3.1 billion Schneider Electric acquisition and industrial AI innovation. India's AI infrastructure race has got very expensive upgrade. AM Intelligence has placed a binding order for 9,000 Nvidia Rubin GPUs for its upcoming Hyderabad AI factory, making it one of Asia's early large-scale deployments of Nvidia's next-generation AI platform. And this isn't just about buying chips. AMI is planning a 1 gigawatt compute business backed by more than $8 billion of planned investment. Now, the order covers 9,000 Nvidia Rubin GPUs deployed through Vera Rubin NVL72 rack scale systems. Each NVL72 rack integrates 72 Rubin GPUs and 36 Vera CPUs, meaning the headline figure is 9,000 GPUs, not 9,000 complete racks. That distinction was extremely important for me to highlight. Now that I've done that, let me go along with what AMI is also continuing to do. Now, AMI expects delivery in the first quarter of 2027, and the hardware will power the first 30 megawatt of AI computing capacity at its Hyderabad facility. Now, the company says this cluster will be capable of running very large AI models, including models with trillions of parameters using high throughput networking and advanced storage. Now, this 30 megawatt deployment is only the first tranche. AMI plans to build 1 gigawatt of compute as a service capacity across India, the United States, Finland, and Malaysia, with an initial 200 megawatt expected to come online in the near term. Now, separately, the company has outlined plans for 5 gigawatts of powered AI data center infrastructure across India, the United States, and Europe. Although the timeline for that larger expansion has not yet been finalized. And of course, the business model is extremely important as well. AMI isn't simply building a private supercomputer. It plans to sell AI compute capacity to cloud providers, AI labs, and organizations building their own AI models. Now, the company says its initial capacity has already been purchased by a United States customer, although the buyer has not yet been identified. And here's where AMI's parentage becomes even more crucial. The company was set up by the promoters of Greenco, a major renewable energy and energy storage player. AMI says access to low-cost, reliable power is one of its competitive advantages in AI infrastructure because, well, running enormous GPU clusters isn't just a chip problem. It's an electricity issue, a cooling problem, and a very significant capital constraint. Now, the Hyderabad facilities are being designed for high-density AI computing with liquid cooling to manage the heat generated by increasingly powerful AI systems, which then brings us to the front page take. But before we go into the details of that, IBM Bob presents Cypher 2026, which is India's biggest AI summit and expo. And well, if you've not said hello to Bob, he's on your screen right now. Say hello to Bob. Well, meet IBM Bob. Yes, the AI development partner helping developers turn bold ideas into real-world solutions way faster. So from code to deployment, build smarter and go beyond the vibe with IBM Bob. And I'm sure you've seen Bob. So that, I'm pretty sure, restores a lot of confidence in you when you're going to be going ahead and employing Bob's services. Now, of course, back to the front page take. Now, this is bigger than India buying 9,000 AI chips. AMI is trying to turn India's energy advantage into an AI compute advantage. The bet is cheap, reliable power plus the newest AI hardware can make India a competitive destination for global AI workloads. But the scale is enormous, and so is, by the way, the execution risk. Building a gigawatt of AI compute isn't just about getting Nvidia hardware. It requires power, cooling, financing, customers, and most importantly, utilization to all work at the same time. So here's the question which I have for all of you. Can AM Intelligence turn India's energy infrastructure into a very serious global AI compute hub? Or, well, is this one of the biggest AI infrastructure bets yet to be tested? Please do let us know what are your thoughts in the comments below. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Front Page by the AM Network. Like, share, subscribe, and always remember, think AI, think AIM. Andhra Pradesh is making a 10,000 crore rupee bet on wind power. But the bigger question is whether that renewable capacity can actually support the state's next wave of factories, technology, and of course, AI. Suzlon is developing 1,325 megawatts of new wind projects in Anantapur while expanding its blade manufacturing footprint in the state. And this isn't just about adding turbines, it's about building a local clean energy supply chain and figuring out how to make intermittent wind power useful for an economy that increasingly needs electricity 24/7. Yes, we definitely know that when we all are residents of Bengaluru as of right now. Now, Suzlon is developing 1,325 megawatts of wind projects in Rayadurg constituency of Anantapur district. involving an estimated investment of around 10,000 crore rupees. Now, the expansion is expected to generate approximately 4,000 direct and indirect jobs, which is definitely very encouraging. And of course, Andhra Pradesh is also getting more manufacturing capacity. Nara Lokesh inaugurated Suzlon's new S144 wind blade production lines at Hulikar village, giving the state both the equipment, manufacturing and project development side of the renewable energy ecosystem. The 1,325 megawatt pipeline is actually being developed with clean energy players including Tata Power and Vari Energy. And there's of course already a concrete example of how this ecosystem is taking shape. Now, only in July of this year, Tata Power Renewable Energy broke ground on an 800 megawatt hybrid project in Andhra Pradesh, combining 400 megawatts of solar and 400 megawatts of wind, with Suzlon developing the wind component. Now, that project also includes a 200 megawatt firm and dispatchable renewable energy allocation for NTPC, backed by a 25 megawatt / 50 megawatt battery storage system. Now, it has secured 800 megawatts of interstate transmission connectivity, which is critical for getting the electricity to the grid, of course. Now, this is where the AI and data center story gets a little complicated. Wind doesn't produce electricity at a constant rate. A data center, factory, or for that matter, a semiconductor facility, most importantly, however, can't simply actually shut down when the wind drops. So adding 1,325 megawatts of wind capacity does not automatically mean 1,325 megawatts of, well, round-the-clock power. The missing piece is firming through battery energy storage systems, pumped storage projects, and of course, stronger transmission and firm and dispatchable renewable contracts. Now, the Tata Power project shows what that architecture can actually resemble: renewable generation, transmission connectivity, and BESS working together rather than, well, treating wind as a standalone source. And of course, Suzlon itself has previously indicated that the remaining 1,325 megawatts Andhra Pradesh opportunity was being converted into firm EPC arrangements, while its separate 775 megawatt AP opportunity could potentially, well, move toward an FDRE structure. Suzlon is targeting 5 gigawatts of additional renewable capacity in Andhra Pradesh by 2030. It already has more than 1,700 megawatts of installed wind capacity in the state. While Anantapur has become a major manufacturing and operational base, the company entered Andhra Pradesh in 2004 and says its existing manufacturing facility has annual blade production capability equivalent to around 1,260 megawatts, which then brings us to the front page take. But before we get into the front page take, please say hello to Bob, because it is IBM Bob that actually presents Cypher 2026. I got very excited when I heard the term Bob. It is, of course, India's biggest AI summit and expo. And guess what? You are seeing Bob right now, so you can wave out to him. Because meeting IBM Bob, yes, your AI coding buddy that turns big ideas into working solutions, and it does it a lot faster. Code, create, and ship with who else but Bob? Because building should be more than just a vibe. And of course, when you see Bob, you realize what I'm talking about. Bob's the tribe, and you've got the vibe. Anyway, now back to the front page take. Now, this, we believe, is no longer just a wind farm story. Andhra Pradesh is trying to build an entire clean power ecosystem: turbines, manufacturing, transmission, and eventually storage around its industrial growth. But the real test is whether renewable capacity can be converted into reliable power when factories and AI infrastructure are actually needed. So here's the question then, as always: can Andhra Pradesh turn wind power into reliable industrial power? Or will storage and grid infrastructure become the real gridlock? No pun intended. Please do let us know what are your thoughts in the comments below. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Front Page by the AM Network. Like, share, subscribe, and always remember, think AI, think AIM. A Bengaluru-based aerospace startup is aiming to rewrite the physics of aerial delivery. Airbound has closed a $37 million Series A round led by Green Oaks, featuring participation from DoorDash Labs, Lackey Groom, Lightspeed, and Humba Ventures. Well, this brings its total raised capital to nearly $50 million, founded by Naman Pushp. In March of 2023, the startup is tackling the core inefficiency of conventional drones, where most of the aircraft's weight is actually spent carrying itself rather than the cargo, which is a tragedy. Airbound's V1 model is a blended wing body tail sitter that takes off vertically like a multi-rotor and cruises on fixed wings, weighing just 1.5 kilograms with a pre-assembly airframe of 130 grams. The aircraft carries a 1 kilogram payload. Therefore, it achieves a payload to aircraft ratio 3 times better than the 4:1 industry standard. Now, using its in-house Rudra ground control system, a single operator can manage 100 or more aircraft simultaneously with real-time automated deconfliction. Airbound's technology has already been field tested through healthcare logistics. Partnering with Narayana Health, Airbound completed over 1,000 autonomous diagnostic sample transfers with 0 failures, mind you, which is quite an amazing achievement. It is, of course, running 10 daily round trips on a 4-kilometer corridor between Chandrapura Clinic and Narayana Health City in Electronic City. Well, the drone service proved so reliable that Narayana Health permanently cancelled ground transfers on the route within 1 week of launch, while a second corridor connecting Banashankari to Electronic City is currently under development. And to be honest, Naman would be so proud, because I remember when he had done an exclusive conversation with us right here on Front Page, that was the time when the partnership and the collaboration had just come about as far as Narayana Health is concerned. And well, he was so looking forward to this, and today I'm sure it would be such a proud moment for the entire team at Airbound. And of course, Naman, if you're watching this, a big congratulations. Only onwards and upwards is the route for you. And now, of course, back to the story. Now, of course, Airbound is scaling up commercial operations through a major agreement with the Andhra Pradesh government. The partnership will deploy an interconnected aerial network across 3 districts connecting Amravati, Vijayawada, and Guntur. Now, this is going to support retail, e-commerce, and medical deliveries, scaling to 10,000 flights per day. Now, to supply the network, Airbound has expanded production from 2 aircrafts per month to 2 per day. Wow! That's acceleration, targeting a manufacturing output of 20 aircrafts daily. As CEO, Naman Pushp noted, the 10-minute delivery benchmark at low cost makes India actually the toughest market on the planet, and rightly so. Which actually also goes on to mean that a system that can succeed here can actually scale anywhere globally. Yes, which then brings us to the front page take. But before we get into the details of the front page take, IBM Bob presents Cypher 2026, which is India's biggest AI summit and expo. And if you haven't said hello to Bob as yet, please do. Yes, because IBM Bob is the AI development partner that you need, helping developers turn bold ideas into real-world solutions, and that too at lightning speed. From code to deployment, you can build smarter and go beyond the vibe with IBM Bob. And when Bob looks like that, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's very easy to do. And now, of course, back to the front page thing. Now, Airbound's $37 million Series A is, well, more than a venture capital win. Airbound is fundamentally attacking the legacy trade-off between delivery speed and logistics costs. Now, by designing ultra-light tail-sitter airframes that shift the payload ratio in favor of cargo, Airbound is proving that Indian deep tech can out-engineer global aviation incumbents. Proud moment. Scaling to 10,000 daily flights in Andhra Pradesh will be the ultimate test of whether autonomous aerial networks can replace ground transport for last-mile retail and healthcare. But the question I have for all of you is this: will statewide drone delivery corridors make traditional road-based last-mile logistics obsolete across India's urban and semi-urban hubs? And if so, how far do you think that day could be? And what would it mean for the middlemen in the logistical business? Another thing I'd like to go ahead and tickle your brain with. I remember again harking back to Naman's conversation where he had mentioned that it can seriously decongest traffic in the cities because also it takes away the warehousing which is right now in the city, or for that matter on the outskirts of the city. It can take it further away, which then allows the city to ply a lot more naturally and normally. What? Please do let us know. What are your thoughts in the comments below? This, ladies and gentlemen, is Front Page by the AM Network. Like, share, subscribe, and always remember, think AI, think AIM. OpenAI has revealed Jalapeno, a chip built with Broadcom that independent testing confirms beats Nvidia, AMD, and Google's own chips on power efficiency and speed, which is quite remarkable. Designed to tape out, took under 16 months, among the fastest ever recorded. OpenAI even used its own AI to help design it. Now, Supreet Kundinya, a very brilliant senior tech journalist, has been separating what's real from what, well, needs a caveat. And today he's joining me exclusively on Front Page to discuss this and a lot more. Welcome to Front Page. Supreet, it's always a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you, Sudhi. Nice
It's been a while since you've been with us.
Yep. Just before we start off,
Sure.
a quick correction. I mean, given how quickly the timelines move,
16 months?
It's 9 months.
Are you serious?
Yeah, it was 9 months.
So they were twins or a boy or a girl?
The tape out from design to tape out was 9 months. So that's like
Wow, man.
quite short.
That is shocking.
That is quite short.
Which actually, then obviously I want for us to set the context for everyone. Jalapeno, Supreet, is actually the chip which is used for the inference stage,
Yep.
which is when the training of the model, etc. is all done. That is when essentially when it is starting to answer you and I, etc.
Yes.
So first I'd like to ask you is this, why is it that OpenAI needed to build its own chip instead of, let's say, buying it? And the fact that does inference seem to have played a very important role for have motivated that decision?
Right. See, I mean, one biggest factor is that you've seen all frontier model companies wanting to build their own chips because one, there's a shortage,
Correct.
right? And two, there's this thing where heterogeneous compute, right? You'd like to get compute from as many vendors as possible.
True.
Because with each sort of chip, it serves a different purpose. Now with OpenAI, their enterprise revenue is skyrocketing, right? Their enterprise demand is skyrocketing, which sort of means that yes, they have long-term partnerships with Nvidia for training.
That's celebration for the chip. Sorry, yes. 9 months, no? Right.
So with Nvidia, they've already scaled long-term partnerships for training. You know, frontier model training is obviously a very capital and a compute-intensive task. But for inference, Nvidia GPUs might be overkill, right?
Fair point.
These are general-purpose GPUs. These are, general-purpose compute units that can, GPUs traditionally were introduced for gaming, cryptocurrency, and then happen to be good at AI model training and deployment. But for inference, you can do much better with a very efficient architecture. We'll get into the technical nitty-gritties in a while. But yeah, OpenAI has a lot of benefits in terms of taking their own matters into their own hands, partnered with Broadcom and Celestia to build an own inference chip that's just good enough for the workloads that they serve. They know what kind of workloads they want to serve, and they're just going to build a chip just for that. With that, you get like really good efficiencies because
makes sense.
End of the day, it's an application specific integrated circuit.
So essentially economical, Supreet, as the way I've understood, and the term that you use, heterogeneous.
Yeah, exactly.
But at the end of the day, gives them a slight advantage.
So I mean, for the same workload, spending lesser money and consumes much lesser power than a GPU.
Fair point.
Simply put.
Fair point.
And inference, of course, is by far the biggest workloads that frontier AI models are undergoing.
Absolutely. Plus also, you and I were having a discussion about this. I mean, it was a casual chat, not on the show, but you and I were discussing this, if you remember, that how moving forward, maybe a lot of other models are also looking at going ahead and downsizing or finding, silos in terms of the amount of compute they will use for the kind of work that is kind of given to the model.
Exactly. I mean, everything now boils down to, look, I just want to optimize
Correct.
the hell out of anything that's there, be it a chip, be it an AI model. Because look, I mean, the biggest constraints, like even if you look at a data center, right? Today, why are GPU prices like skyrocketing by the hour? Because there's like very less GPUs available. And the fact that Nvidia's Blackwell GPUs fully haven't been deployed, right? I think 90 to 95% of them haven't been fully deployed yet. I mean, agreements have been signed. That's because these really powerful chips need like super high and super powerful liquid cooling systems. They need the entire power infrastructure around them. But with
uninterrupted power,
exactly, they're very demanding. And obviously, there's a huge demand for these like super chips as well for training AI models and other workloads. But for inference, which is by far the biggest workload that you have, billions of people using ChatGPT every day, billions of enterprises using trillions of tokens every day. So for inference, why can't we just build a chip? Of course, the initial capex is going to be like really high. You got to pay a lot of money for Broadcom. lot of money to TSMC to just manufacture your own chip. But in the end, right, you're getting control of everything, consuming as less power. Deployment becomes so much more easier.
I agree.
So that's
which then brings me to this then. OpenAI used codecs and a model called GPT Astra, Supreet, to help design the chip itself. Now, this is where probably the caveat aspect comes into the picture, or no, actually that comes in later. But is this genuinely AI designing hardware, or do you feel this is AI in a way speeding up the work the engineers were, well, essentially deployed to do?
Exactly. I think it's obviously the second part. There's a lot of misconceptions about the entire 9-month tape-out. Obviously, the 9-month tape-out, which OpenAI said, was largely assisted by codecs. The advantage, first of all, understanding why this happened is also crucial, right? Because OpenAI is building a chip for now just for itself.
Correct.
Right? So they clearly know what the needs are. It's a chip addressed and designed for a very narrow scope of tasks. So designing it becomes easier, right? If you're Qualcomm, if you're an Nvidia or designing a chip, you got to cater it to like thousands of customers that you have, right? It's got to work everywhere. So with OpenAI, they know the kind of workloads there is. So that way they were in a position to use a lot of abstractions, right? For example, they used one of Google's XLS compiler, which makes it very easy to use AI to write the RTL code. So basically, it's just, of course, they did end up using tools from Siemens, Cadence, and all of these in the final aspects, simulating the chip, ensuring the chip is manufactured.
But the heavy lifting was...
Yeah, but the basic coding, right, because it was for a narrow set of workloads, they were able to use AI. Some of the grunt manual tasks that require a lot of manual effort were obviously absorbed by AI, and some of the other abstractions like XLS. Google's XLS is again an abstraction to the RTL coding layer that you use for semiconductors. So that makes it much more easier for codecs to write code. So yeah, I mean, it does signal a very good opportunity in bringing in AI for chip design. But you also got to remember that they had Broadcom on their side.
Yeah.
Right?
That's a big
There's
one.
a lot of human expertise already. There's probably... Look, this is a private company. They're not going to get into how exactly they designed. Bunch of templates, bunch of expertise, bunch of stuff that was available to them.
Coming to the table.
Exactly, already coming into the table. All of these makes usage of codecs much more easier.
Fair point.
Right? It's not one of those things where you see engineers say, hey, I used codecs to build an app in 30 minutes or something.
Vis-a-vis an engineer who's been doing it for the last 20 years.
Yeah, obviously. And even you've got people like Cadence and Siemens integrating AI agents to their own workflow, right? Obviously, with any other engineering field that there exists today, AI has come into the semiconductor design aspect. It's automating a bunch of things. There are already abstractions a lot, because end of the day, gone are those days where you're like manually designing logic gates. So already there were abstractions, and now the AI is another abstraction. So in terms of abstraction layers, yes, a lot of higher abstractions with what they did with Jalapeno. But yeah, so AI is obviously not going to change.
Fair enough. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just a
lot of hand-holding
the entire process as far as the engineers are concerned.
And it gives a lot of room for these engineers to know what to build.
Fair point.
A lot of time for testing, a lot of time for experimentation. They're not so consumed by the lower level processes that exist. Yeah.
You'd also very quickly mentioned, I'd very quickly want your take on this, where you said that, OpenAI is specifically using it for their own inference, essentially. Exactly. Fair point. But do you think it also has to do something with the fact that, Supreet, this was only about 4 or 5 months back when OpenAI went very clear about the fact that they want to start to concentrate as far as codecs was concerned. They wanted to go the way that probably Anthropic was going as far as enterprise was concerned, because they'd burnt their fingers when it came down for them to experiment with so many other things. They shut down a lot of their other projects and they went specifically for that. So maybe this is a ramification of that.
100%. Look, I mean, they've killed Sora. There's no signs of them pre-training a huge video model again. And I think GPT 5.6 Soul, the latest one, it's again a really good model, but we're still awaiting something that's a large pre-training from OpenAI once again. Currently, the focus is to just get out as many tokens as possible, right? That's been their focus. We want to get as many enterprises to use our models, get as many customers to use our models, get to our paid plans. So their focus obviously is to now sell as many tokens as possible. And look, they've also reduced their model pricing. The Luna model,
GPT-5
Luna model was reduced by a huge factor. The Sol model also was reduced by 20% in the last few days, if I remember that correctly. So the goal with OpenAI for any other, like any other company, I think besides Google right now, is to sell as many tokens as possible. When you have that ultimate end goal of selling as many tokens as possible, today it's happening with reducing model costs and building more efficient AI models. Tomorrow, once in 2027, once these chips reach production and they're actually deployed at scale, it still continues to aid that factor. You can now
aid, plus also at the end of the day, huge cost optimization.
Exactly, right? Now, if it takes OpenAI like 2-3x less amount of money and less amount of power to supply whatever,
the investors for sure will be very happy, sir.
Yeah, that, and even customers.
Correct.
If price, two things that might happen. If pricing continues to decrease, customers are happy, OpenAI is also happy because there's more utilization. Or if the token pricing does not reduce dramatically because of chips like Jalapeno, even if it reduces incrementally, it's a win-win, right? OpenAI continues to scale its AI models.
Which is what then in turn helps the investors to remain happy about their investments.
Exactly. So overall, it's pointing to the same goal of their focus on just enterprise workflows and just deploying as many tokens as possible.
Now let's talk about the caveat bit, which I remember you had mentioned very briefly. I'd want you to elaborate on that. Now, for specific blocks, Supreet, AI written code beat human engineers by 1.5 to 1.8 times.
Right.
Fair? Now, this was, though OpenAI says this applies to individual blocks, not full models.
Right.
The question I have for you is that caveat doing a lot of the work to kind of, in a way, to keep the claim to be very honest, which is being made?
I mean, end of the day, right, it's just the kind of space that engineers get while they're using AI to design these chips. Now, even I think once Jalapeno was announced, just very coincidentally, Intel CTO put out a post on the promise of AI, generated chip designs, right? Now, there's a huge scope of improvements. For example, let's take Google's TPU, right? A very fairly recent innovation which worked wonders in terms of handling AI workloads. Then you had Google's TPU lead, Grok, Jonathan Ross, come up with a really good innovation of LPUs designed specifically for language. And then you've got Cerebras doing wonderful work as well. So what this happens is that now, if this speeds up the entire process of, look, if I as an engineer put out my experiment using AI, and if it reduces the time for me to test and validate it, we as a group of engineers can come up with so many more designs and ideas for improved chips. And this has like two different outcomes. One, you get a lot of space to experiment, and two, the AI models also start learning from the feedback cycles.
Fair point.
If design A failed in whatever testing and it was not, probably you can't like squeeze that in the floor plan of your chip, probably gets better, right? Suggests better. So this entire reinforcement learning loop that you can perhaps apply for a chip designing level. But yeah, I mean, these claims from OpenAI is always, again, you gotta take it with a little pinch of salt because look, I'm not saying that they're lying because they don't have everything out there fully publicly.
But that's okay.
You can't take it as a very blanket statement. There are nuances, there's a little bit of ambiguity which can be like wrapped around.
Honest.
Yeah, that's okay. Right?
Which company on the face of this planet, let's be honest, Supreet, even in the past, let's forget the AI conversation. Which company has gone ahead and revealed its, let's say, fuel pump technology to you in its perfect...
Exactly. I mean, that's one aspect, but yeah.
Fair enough. Okay, now, when we talk about the semi-analysis, an outside firm verified Jalapeno beat... so this is interesting. Now, it beat every major chip on the benchmark standards, Supreet,
the best
which
chip,
I think is quite remarkable for its first try. It was not like, it also ran the race. It's kind of leading it.
Exactly. This is something that we really have to discuss about because I'll tell you what happened in January 2024, right? DeepSeek, when the DeepSeek model came out, it said one thing. We just used 5,000 Nvidia GPUs to train this model. And this was from China, a country that already had like very scrutinized access to Nvidia chips. And then what happened later was the fact that Nvidia stock came crashing down. People thought, oh, suddenly we'll need as less Nvidia GPUs as possible. But that was probably the dumbest thing that could have happened because nobody at DeepSeek said that we'd need as less GPUs as possible. They said, please give us more compute, right? We'd like to experiment more. Sure, if a model is more efficient, I'm going to buy more and more GPUs and deploy them. I'm going to use them more. It's a classic Jevons paradox, right? So there is one dumb thing that happened back in the day where everybody just started pulling out money from Nvidia, but turns out DeepSeek actually used Nvidia GPUs to train their model, and the fact that they had an efficient, a more optimized architecture would actually mean good for Nvidia.
Absolutely.
What might happen the same way if there are
you're correlating
yeah,
it
exactly.
with this.
Now, what might happen in the same way if people are not reading this properly and say that, oh, OpenAI has now built a chip of their own, an AI model maker company has built a chip on their own, so much more better on benchmarks, whatever, 1.9x, so many more tokens compared to Nvidia. Let me just sell my Nvidia stocks, and okay, Nvidia's earnings are coming up. I don't know what's going to happen. It's simply wrong, right? Because OpenAI themselves, if you take their word, OpenAI themselves are continuing to invest in Nvidia chips. Everyone needs the best of the Nvidia chips.
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely.
At any cost, right? So before we get to the comparison of Jalapeno beating chips, you will continue to need Nvidia chips. Nvidia's GPUs are now completely for a different set of workloads
Bang
altogether.
on. I was going to say that.
Completely different set of workloads altogether. Or more so, OpenAI's Jalapeno is for a completely different set of workloads
for inference
altogether.
Nvidia is for a different method.
And OpenAI might also be deploying Nvidia GPUs for inference, where they internally feel that this sort of an inference workload runs better than an Nvidia GPU. Coming to comparison, this is just, you got to take it like very specifically. It's a very specific benchmark. This isn't a DeepSeek 670 billion parameter model. The benchmark was performed by an independent entity called Semi-Analysis, but again, they are very close to model providers. Kind of the de facto layer for every company in the world to use their analysis for benchmarks. We still haven't had any actual, individual verification yet. We got to wait for that. That is one thing. And two, the workloads that they were tested against were incredibly narrow, right? It's just an 8,000 token input and a 1,000 token output sort of a benchmark. It was just a single turn sort of a workflow where ask a question with 8k tokens, you get 1k tokens of output, and this is where OpenAI's Jalapeno is better at, right? You have multi-agent workloads, you have so many more workloads that might come up in the future. You've seen so many people
I think it's too embryonic a stage for anybody to arrive at any conclusion.
Exactly. Don't come at any conclusion right now that, oh, you know what, Jensen Huang's moat is just gone out of the water. Not at all, right there. So companies are just, I won't say struggling, so much desire to get the Vera Rubin, chips. And it's the same with every compute company, right? Even with AMD, for example, they are better than Nvidia in many workloads, but they are suited for a specific set of companies with like really good engineering background.
Simple logic. I remember Andrew Feldman, right? When I had a conversation with him, I'll hark back to that, Supreet. That gentleman, Cerebras, he ended up saying something which I thought it just made such an impact on my mind. He says, training model is wonderful. If you need speed, you've got to come to Cerebras.
Exactly.
So everyone is distinguishing themselves with their overall perspective.
Exactly. So, I mean, everyone wants to serve all kinds of workloads. You look at AMD, they had their top of the line GPU coming out, but what did they also do? Immediately after their announcements were made, Lisa So said that, hey, we're going to partner with Cerebras as well. We're going to also deploy an AMD with plus Cerebras. So to get an AMD-like performance, obviously with a little specificities and narrow workloads, but with Cerebras level speed. You got Grok as well. They're with Nvidia right now. There's Google TPUs. Etched is another startup that raised a lot of money. You got OpenAI's Jalapeno. Nobody is ever sad that there's a new chip in the market. Great. I mean, Jensen Huang would probably
serious level of shortage, sir.
Maybe OpenAI is going to buy less of my GPUs for inference, but for training, Grok's founder himself said everybody should buy every last single Nvidia or AMD GPU available.
Correct.
Because they're continuing to be the best for training.
And I think also another thing, Supreet, I'll just add to what you were saying because it's a very valid point you make. Let's be honest. The industry right now is reeling under that pressure. Right? It's shortage. Point one. And it's too early for anybody to start to say that, okay, this is good, that is not good, this is okay, this is fine.
You just need chips.
Exactly. And I think that stage will come at probably a little more of a mature and an evolved understanding down the road. Where they say, acha, ab hai, volume hai, now this is good for this.
The question, I don't think anyone buying chips, anyone seriously buying cloud compute is even thinking of the fact that, dude, I want the best Nvidia chips. You look at Nvidia's A100, a chip released in 2020,
Correct.
a 6-year-old chip, is continuing. The price is continuing to increase. I mean, you guys did a front page news on this, right?
Yes.
The cloud companies who provided the neo clouds, Nebius and CoreWeave, their revenue was skyrocketing. They said they're recently signing contracts for a 6-year-old GPU until 2029. Models are getting so much more better that they can run on 6-year-old GPUs, right? They're like, just get me GPU compute. I don't care what it is. Nvidia's H100, the Hopper GPUs are like,
shortage.
Exactly. Nvidia's Hopper GPUs are like still so good, right? Not even talking about Blackwell. And there's already Vera Rubin entering production. People are really happy with like 3-4-year-old GPUs. There's absolutely, the kind of workloads that most people need to deploy a model or to even fine tune and train, because there's so many open weight models available today. You look at companies like Thomson Reuters, for example, they post-trained Quen model. So many startups are post-training like JLM models. US tech companies are using open weight models. We've come to a point where nobody needs to train models unless it's for the purpose of sovereignty. We've had many India AI mission speakers. Of course, for us as a country, we'll continue to need and get as many top-of-the-line Nvidia GPUs as possible.
Because it's the need of the hour for us, let's be honest.
Yeah, but for most people,
need to give compute capacity to our frontier labs so that maybe tomorrow, not very far off into the future, we can have our own models.
Exactly. So that's one thing. Dude, even agentic AI workloads are now being, really, they're demanding CPU, they're driving up the CPU demand, right? The CPU, data center CPU industry is also skyrocketing.
Correct.
So,
Utho Cloud, that gentleman who was with us on front page, he was talking about the same.
Exactly. Now the thing is, we're moving to the next phase of AI where you've got models like Mythos, Fable, or even OpenAI's Astra coming up, where you need a lot more compute for things like, again, there's a far-fetched thought like cancer vaccines or some of the other physics experiments, or maybe some other simulations. We've seen Moderna come up with the vaccine that could cure a specific type of cancer. And I think there were reports that AI was used to assist it. But for large-scale computational experiments, you would still need the top-of-the-line GPUs, right? There's going to be demand for all sorts of workloads. And I think now that these AI models, general-purpose models, are getting as lean as possible, they need leaner compute, can do with like ASICs like TPUs or Jalapeños.
All the more reason that this is a great decision for them
people Nvidia could much position their most powerful GPUs into like scientific research or other high-demand computational experiments that could potentially like change lives.
If I were to correlate this, Supreet, let's be honest, you correlate it with any other industry, for example. Any industry, when it's gone through a certain amount of a shortage or a certain amount of, call it a fatigue, you have a lot of companies suddenly coming up with providing them solutions. For example, the automotive sector. There are X amount of things. Yeah, exactly.
That's exactly how technology works. Right? I mean, you can't have the doomer attitude that, tech consumes whatever X amount of resources.
No, any industry.
Yeah, any industry. Any industry is working for optimization and efficiencies, right? I mean, you've had like cars that would like petrol guzzling cars, and then you've had EVs, more compact EVs. People in India, like you've had Chetan Maini's Reva, someone who really had that foresight, right? What I'm trying to say is that there are people with like companies and people with excellent foresight, with trying to bring down the resource consumption of each piece of technology available. Because even if I were to go to the cynical way that they don't probably care about your consumption, but they care about their consumption. They don't want to pay as many bills as possible, right? You might come up to me and say, hey, Nvidia doesn't care about how much money my GPU sort of sucks out of my electricity bill. They don't care. You think they care? No, they don't. No. I'll agree. I'm not going to give any sympathy to the CEOs, but they care about their own bills, right? For their own sakes, they need to make it
Supreet, how do you know? You and I are not flies on the wall in those boardrooms, right?
I mean,
we don't know the kind of arm twisting you might be going through.
But that's the thing. You're often asked like, hey, why are you taking the side of a tech CEO? You're not, right? The people want to reduce bills for themselves.
It's business.
They want to get a chip as quickly as production because that makes them money more quickly. And in turn, as a byproduct, even if it was intended or not, consumes less resources, consumes less water, consumes less power. You probably wouldn't need liquid cooling for an older GPU. Sure. Right? It works in the best interest
of everybody. The overheads, the maintenance, there's so many things.
Exactly. So, yeah.
Fair point. Okay. When we talk about Nvidia's next chip, which is already kind of shipping here, I want you to kind of go ahead and talk about it, although you did mention it. But Nvidia's next-gen Rubin platform, which is faster memory, is already in early deliveries. Now, by the time Jalapeno scales, will it even try to fight it, or this is a moot point?
It's not going to fight. Not going to
No
fight
point,
Rubin
no?
at all. Because the fact that, look, you can give money to Nvidia and purchase a Vera Rubin chip, right? But the fact to build the energy infrastructure around it, the power and the cooling ecosystem and infrastructure around it, it's going to take a long time, right? Again, I keep repeating, Air Street Capital's, I think, State of AI Compute report from a couple of months ago said that a huge majority of, like 90 to 90% of Blackwell GPUs aren't even deployed yet.
Correct.
Contracts are signed, GPUs may have arrived. The GPU, remember, is a very small part of the entire infrastructure. I can buy a GPU and I can keep it here, but it's of no use if it does not have the entire, mechanism.
RMZ, the gentleman who is heading it, he said the same thing, what you're talking about, Supreet.
Exactly.
Because I had asked him that, you know what, the India AI mission has only allocated X amount of GPUs till now, what's the scene, etc. And he said the same thing. He said, till we build the infrastructure,
it's not going to happen. Allocation is just a very teeny tiny part.
Correct,
You've got to have the entire, embodiment around the GPU to actually pull things out of it. So it's going to be a long time for like mass deployment. I'm not talking about production. Mass deployment of the Vera Rubin GPUs. They're intended for like most powerful Nvidia next generation Vera Rubin GPUs are probably going to be used for the top of the line workflows that we probably haven't even imagined yet, right? Nobody's ever thought of
healthcare, for example.
Exactly, healthcare or even robotics or physical AI or just any other thing that could go beyond like chatbots and just fulfill this dream of, look, I don't want AI to write my essays or emails.
That's where it should be then.
Yeah, that's where it's eventually going to go, right? Because Nvidia is thinking in like 3-4 years. There, I think after Rubin, there's the Feynman architecture, which obviously is under the works internally. Everyone has a pipeline until 2030. You don't even know what workloads will be existing in the next 1 month to 2 months. Nobody thought of an open cloud. Nobody thought of agentic AI getting this popular. Nobody had even heard the term of agentic AI when chatbots became popular, right? Nobody thought OpenAI would give up on video models. So you have these workloads are
ever-changing, shifting
workloads are not predictable.
Landscape.
So for the current set of workloads that OpenAI immediately needs to fulfill in the next couple of years, Jalapeno is a very good bet, right? Quick tape out. The second and third gen is already in the works.
9 months, sir.
Right? The second generation of Jalapeno chip is not a one-off effort, right? True. Is already in the works, and tape out is supposed to happen in a couple of months. Google, for example, has already had like 8 generations of their TPUs. These things move fast, right? Internal chips, ASICs move much more quickly. Gives them a lot of leverage than waiting for like a top of the line compute to be deployed in their infrastructure. So I don't think there's any like competition
as such. They'll stick to their lane and focus there.
It's like,
as far as the semiconductor journey is concerned, India's semiconductor journey. Supreet, you and I've had chats with Mohit and Sanjana, etc. in the past. Now we're still years from its commercial chip perspective, but still, I'd like to understand from you. If, let's say, we now need our own frontier AI to design a competitive chip, for example, does the pull further ahead of everyone who doesn't have one at this given point in time, or do you feel that at some level or the other that could leverage us some sort of advantage?
Look, I mean, that's one interesting question and one interesting aspect. I know if AI is going to make it much more easier for designing chips. Again, there is some sort of a promise. But you also got to examine the promise that OpenAI has sort of sold in terms of chip designing with AI. Once again, it's worth mentioning that OpenAI had Broadcom's expertise in mind, engineers who know in and out of their IP. So
fair point. And let me add to that. Broadcom already builds Google's TPUs, and now OpenAI has Jalapeno, so is Broadcom.
They've had that expertise with Google. They've had expertise building chips themselves. They've had they're bringing that shared expertise to OpenAI. OpenAI themselves have a lot of talent. Working in a country like USA that's been at the frontier of building chips, and of course like very close relations with TSMC in terms of allocation of resources and the entire manufacturability.
TSMC, I believe, has bet somewhere around $260 billion as far as Arizona is concerned.
Exactly.
For its new plant.
Exactly,
so,
right? And of course, the kind of money that they can pour into the effort of Jalapeno, obviously there's no amount, there's no specific amount that the company has disclosed. So you've got capital, you've got talent, and the overall ecosystem that continues to ensure how they build a chip of their own. Same with Apple, right? Apple's built their own M1, M2, M3 chip. that's a result of talent and the overall ecosystem, right? You can, they've got the best of the talent from Nvidia, Broadcom, Intel.
Agreed.
For India, I think we are in a very promising space of chip design and development.
Let's take a few names. Let's say Yotta, let's say NASA, let's say,
even that's at the Neo Cloud and data center level.
Correct.
But even like firms like Netra Semi and all of that, they've had they have a really good focus, right?
Would they be maybe a little motivated with something?
I'm sure. Irrespective of Jalapeno, I think some people running companies like Netra Semi and the C2I Semiconductors, all of these chip startups in India, 100% have a foresight and would have conducted experiments in using AI and these frontier coding tools, assisting them in chip design. Of course, as I even mentioned, some of the popular tools that exist today, Siemens, Cadence, and all of them also support agentic workflows inside them, a lot of AI features. So obviously, it's going to be promising the next time we speak to an Indian chip startup founder as to how much AI has improved, assisted their workflow. Probably for the goals of the Indian chip ecosystem, it might speed it up at best. But in terms of changing the manufacturing as well, I think things that happen before the manufacturing, it's going to get quicker with AI, obviously. But in terms of just flipping the entire goal of the Indian chip ecosystem, where now with AI, can we focus on some of the most
having some sort of independence,
cutting edge technology. I think it's still very far-fetched because semiconductor design.
Two very big stumbling blocks, Supreet, as you rightly pointed out. A Broadcom sort of a collaboration would help in a big way. I think one is that expertise, and the other is, of course, capital.
Capital, expertise, manufacturability. Yeah. What does it take to ensure you get spots with TSMC to manufacture your cutting edge nodes, the availability of it, right? Of course, there have been ambitious countries with chip design sort of initiatives, but there's still very few countries who've continued to execute.
Although there is a huge thrust and a huge positive sort of a marriage or a collaboration with Japan. Yeah. As far as the second round of ISM 2.0 is concerned. So you never know.
End of the day, the biggest promise that one needs to take away is the partnerships.
Manufacturing.
Yeah, from a manufacturing perspective, yes. Which again, partnerships, right? They're your best man.
I agree.
It's like saying they're already good at something. Of course, you can bring the sovereignty and the political angle out of it. But for now, if you had a good relations with the country,
I don't really think it matters on the larger canvas of things.
A lot of policymakers, if you talk to them, I think sovereignty is one aspect for sure. But what is also important is diplomatic relations with any country, right?
Yes.
So,
and we have two options.
If you have two options as a country in technology, should I reinforce and strengthen the existing diplomatic relations that I have and put in more capital in those relations and partnerships? Or should I strip away that and be like, I'll do things myself? Both are great, but the other
I'll go with the other one. Yeah, I'll go with the former.
Exactly. You need to ensure that you have diplomatic relations with
and let's face it, Supreet, correct me if I'm wrong, but Japan has been a pioneer when it comes to semiconductor manufacturing. It has been for the longest time.
Even the US,
although it lost out in terms of the market share, etc.
Exactly.
The expertise, sir.
You look at companies. US is often viewed as in isolation, right? Okay, they're doing everything. The truth is they're not. They just have really good ties with Taiwan. They have really good ties with Netherlands that provides them these machines from ASML to build these machines. It's just a result of great relations. They haven't done everything on their own.
Right? And you don't need to in today's day and age.
Great relations with so many countries, including India, where talent has gone there. One of Grok's leading folks, I think VP is of Indian origin. So many people of Indian origins in AMD, in India. AMD is software lead, right? He studied in a university in Chennai, right? So it's because of a good diplomatic relation between USA and India that it created a pathway for Indian talent to move, which resulted in talent designing
100% agree with you. I think you made a very valid point.
That's the takeaway. When you see OpenAI designing a chip, what India must look at, to answer your question while we come around in different ways, is that look at more partnerships, right? With frontier companies.
No, I'm with you on this.
No, that's what, for our audience, because we spoke a lot of things.
We went all over the place.
Fair enough. Bring
but in conclusion, I think finally your message or your thought in to kind of take us home, Supreet, in terms of manufacturing, we've discussed partnerships are the way forward. AI might assist, but I think with a wonderful expertise coming in to assist and accelerate maybe the usage.
AI help and assistance
because we have a serious chip issue.
Exactly, and it's only happening in the first 2-3 layers of design, right? First 2-3 layers of design. There's like so many layers in the design stack itself, so much of expertise that you still need to even know what to put in and put out of AI.
So we have great talent as far as design is concerned.
Design is concerned for sure. We've had a lot of big tech companies coming into India, establishing their design, hubs. But yeah, I think the biggest takeaway for India's chip industry is that partnerships are your best bet, right? You don't have to be good at everything. You need to be good at making partnerships that can do you wonders fully instead of the attempt to be good at making cutting edge chips. But of course, for a certain level of like chips, like you got 28 nanometer, 30 nanometer chips, you can still, of course, ramp up the production because it has other effects, right? Improves the local economy, right? If you stop dependency on other countries for some of the non-frontier and non-cutting edge chips, you can probably get more and more Indian talent to work for Indian companies in India, improve the manufacturing sector in India.
Supreet, simple logic. What you're talking about, I'll just go ahead and add to what you're saying. GCC ecosystem, sir. We are inviting everyone here to set up here.
Exactly.
Let's do the same as far as this is concerned.
So when you see so many startups designing chips for surveillance cameras or cutting edge consumer appliances, like maybe not a smartphone but some of the other electronic appliances that you have, if you're probably importing those chips from like let's say US or China or some other country, if you can assess and focus on those capabilities, I'm sure that can aid the local economy, bring in so much more manufacturing, bring in so much more job opportunities both in the blue and the white collar segment, and yeah, it just can funnel a lot of talent in the ecosystem.
Fair enough. Well, Supreet, it's as always so wonderful and enthralling to have conversations with you. Please, ladies and gentlemen, follow our senior tech journalist Supreet Kondinia on the Analytics India magazine. Writes wonderfully well, brings in some fabulous insights, and tries to obviously go ahead and trust you me when I say this. A lot of times when I finish his articles, I have an aha moment. So I'm really hoping and praying that you could be able to share what your aha moments have been as far as this conversation is concerned. 9 months, that's all it took for Jalapeno to be born. Quite a spicy birth, I believe. Please do let us know what are your thoughts. Think AI, think AI. Hello and a very warm welcome to Front Page, only on the AIM Network, India's definitive media organization and voice on everything AI and technology. Truly a pleasure to have you all with us. And here, of course, are the headlines. Indian IT giants expand in Mexico to combine nearshore time zone proximity with India's massive scale as AI reshapes global software delivery. Can Mohali's lower costs, growing tech talent and new GCC incentives help Punjab become India's next major global capability center hub? That's a question we're going to try to answer. The Andhra Pradesh High Court refused to halt the $15 billion Google-Adani data center in Visakhapatnam despite its petition raising severe environmental and resource concerns. The Trump administration plans new H-1B rules, raising employer scrutiny and reshaping visa access for Indian tech and global AI talent. Well, we all have been hearing that AI is supposed to shrink software teams. So then, why are India's biggest IT companies investing in Mexico? TCS, HCL Tech, Wipro, Infosys and Tech Mahindra have all built operations there. And now, AI is changing what those operations are actually for. Well, that's because the future may not be about having more engineers. It may just be about having the right engineers in the right time zone. And here's actually what's starting to happen. AI is taking over repetitive software work. You're aware of that. That means companies need fewer large junior teams. But the work that requires, of course, more judgment, more senior engineers, and much closer collaboration with product teams. And that is where Mexico comes into the picture. Now, Mexico resides just 0 to 3 hours from US time zones. India is roughly 10.5 to 13 hours ahead. So, well, basically, a Mexican team can join a US product meeting in real time, review code, and make decisions on the same day. An Indian team can then handle the larger workload through asynchronous handoffs. And it's, of course, not just India versus Mexico, it's becoming India plus Mexico. Yes, that's the value addition. Now, for years, the Indian IT model was built around scale, large teams, large projects, and work handed across time zones. AI is definitely starting to disrupt that very model, if it hasn't done so already. Now, Codefin, a Mexico-based IT recruitment firm, says AI is taking over repetitive tasks that once supported large junior teams. The remaining work needs more product judgment, and that makes proximity far more valuable. As the report puts it, and I quote now, a question that takes 4 minutes to answer live can take a working day across a large time zone gap, end quote. Now, that is, of course, the real reason Mexico matters. India can remain the scale and engineering hub. Mexico can become the nearshore product-facing hub. And this is already starting to happen at scale. TCS has more than 12,000 employees in Mexico. Its Guadalajara center, which is the largest delivery center outside of India, alone has more than 6,000 people. And TCS is now adding an AI layer to it as well. It recently opened a Gemini Experience Center in Mexico City with Google Cloud, with, of course, more than 3,000 AI agents built with Gemini Enterprise. Wipro, Infosys, and Tech Mahindra are taking fairly different approaches. Some are focusing on nearshore delivery, some, of course, on engineering and AI, others on customer experience and business processes. But the point is, they aren't moving India's work to Mexico. So yes, let's not be actually concerned about that. They're actually splitting the work differently. Interesting, which brings us to the front page take. But before we get into that, here is something which is very exciting for me to share with you. Cypher. Yes, IBM Bob presents Cypher 2026. It is India's biggest AI summit and expo. And of course, have you met Bob? Well, he's a delight. Meet IBM Bob. Yes, your AI coding buddy that turns big ideas into working solutions at lightning speed. Go code, create, and ship with guess who? Yes, Bob. Because building should be more than just a vibe. Looking at Bob, that's possible. And now, of course, back to the front page take. Now, the interesting thing about AI isn't just that, well, it can shrink teams. That we have seen. It could make geography more important, as we are starting to witness. Now, when repetitive work disappears, the work that remains becomes far more collaborative, more senior, and more closely tied to, well, the customer. That makes being in the same time zone definitely a competitive edge. So India's IT giants aren't abandoning India. Let's not get into that entire conversation. They're actually building a two-hub model. India brings the scale, Mexico brings the proximity. And if AI keeps shrinking software teams, that split could start to matter even more as we go into the future. Well, please do let us know. What are your thoughts in the comments below this? Ladies and gentlemen, is Front Page by the AM Network. Like, share, subscribe, and always remember, think AI, think AIM. Bengaluru has the GCCs. Hyderabad, of course, has them as well. Delhi, NCR, and Pune have, well, quite a few of them as well. I'm, of course, still referring to the GCCs. Now, Punjab wants Mohali to be a very, very important cog in that very club. And its pitch is this: Tier 1 talent and infrastructure, but Tier 2 operating costs. Now, Punjab has stepped up that pitch this month with Industries and Commerce Minister Aman Arora taking a delegation to Bengaluru to court GCC, IT, and research and development, and of course, semiconductor investments as well. Now, Punjab says the Chandigarh-Mohali region already has around 1.25 lakh technology professionals, according to a recent state survey. Now, it also produces more than 40,000 fresh graduates a year with access to engineering colleges, ITIs, polytechnics, and institutions such as the Flagship University. That gives Mohali something GCCs increasingly want, which is a large talent pool outside India's most expensive technology markets. And the proposition isn't just about cheaper salaries. Punjab is also selling Mohali on planned infrastructure, which, by the way, is pretty much a front runner. Plug and play office space, airport connectivity, and of course, the quality of life. Essentially, arguing that companies can build teams there without sacrificing the everyday infrastructure that employees care about. There is, of course, where Mohali's pitch becomes commercially interesting. Industry estimates show Tier 2 GCC locations can offer roughly 25 to 50% lower overall costs than Tier 1 metros, mainly through cheaper real estate, talent, and operating expenses. And Punjab is explicitly building its GCC policy around that very advantage. Now, the state's 2026 policy offers eligible GCC projects incentives including up to 125% of fixed capital investment, an employment generation subsidy of 7,500 rupees per employee per month, rental support and electricity duty benefits, subject to, of course, eligibility conditions. But incentives are honestly not the whole pitch. As one Punjab official said this, the incentives are only a hand-holding mechanism. Mohali already has a technology base with companies such as Infosys, Tech Mahindra, FIS, Emerson, EdFX, and Teleperformance among those with a presence in the region. And the broader Chandigarh-Mohali corridor has been building an ecosystem around IT services, startups, and technology talent for quite some time now. Now that matters because, well, GCCs rarely choose a city based on a single incentive. They look for existing employers, talent supply, universities, infrastructure, and of course, most importantly, I believe, the ability to scale. And that is the real challenge. India's major GCC hubs didn't really become global centers just because, well, they were cheaper. They built senior leadership pools, specialized engineering talent, research and development ecosystems, supplier networks, and of course, relationships with global headquarters. Even when JLL's latest assessment says more than 90% of India's GCC activity remains concentrated in Tier 1 cities, despite the growing cost advantage of Tier 2 locations. So Mohali needs to prove it can move beyond cost-efficient delivery work into actually product engineering, AI, cybersecurity, research and development, and global decision making, which then brings us to a decision on front page, which is, here is the front page take. Well, but before we get into the details of that, let me of course go ahead and announce to you again the fact that IBM Bob presents Cypher 2026. It is India's biggest AI summit and expo. And of course, it's now time to raise the curtains on the one, the only, IBM Bob. Well, the AI development partner, helping developers turn bold ideas into real-world solutions. And that too, a lot faster. Now from code to deployment, build smarter and go beyond the vibe with IBM Bob. Nice. Now that you've absorbed that, let's get back to Mohali. Now Mohali has definitely got the ingredients, which is of course talent, lower costs, infrastructure, and government support, as we've already fleshed out for you earlier in the story. But GCCs aren't built on cost alone. It plays a big factor for sure. But the real test is whether Punjab can create enough ecosystem depth for global companies to put high value work, not just lower cost work, in Mohali. Because becoming a cheaper alternative is one thing for sure, becoming a serious global GCC hub is another. So here's the question. Can Mohali turn cost arbitrage into a genuine technology advantage? Let me add to that. I personally feel it also talks about attrition, which I didn't mention earlier, but I really would like to go ahead and highlight right now. You know, the attrition rates would come down because here are students or here are engineers, young engineers who are starting off on their journey. They don't really need to leave their homes and go far away to different cultures, to different sort of topographies, etc. They can stay closer at home, which gives a huge advantage to the company which is hiring them. Well, they can become real big, important instrumental tools moving forward in the journey. To be honest, like institutional knowledge. That's one factor. The other factor is also something which I'd like to highlight, which is the fact that you need to go ahead and give a chance to a community, for that matter, a region or an ecosystem for it to find its feet. But then, well, those are my thoughts. Please tell me what are yours. Because if we have to reach a target of 5,000 GCCs by 2035, trust me, Tier 2 and Tier 3 definitely have to fire. Think AI, think AIM. A high-stakes legal battle is unfolding over India's largest planned artificial intelligence infrastructure campus. The Andhra Pradesh government officially assured the High Court that the proposed $15 billion Google-Adani data center in Visakhapatnam will strictly comply with statutory laws and will not cause environmental harm. The statements came during hearings on a public interest litigation filed by Bolisetti Satyanarayana, which challenged the project's regulatory approvals and requested an immediate status quo order to halt ongoing site construction. Now, a High Court bench led by Chief Justice Lisa Gill refused to grant the stay order, allowing construction activities to continue, of course. However, the bench issued a stern warning that environmental clearances cannot be given a go-by, directing the state government to verify that all work strictly possesses valid legal and environmental permissions. Well, the legal challenge brings significant scrutiny onto the environmental and resource footprint of the 1 gigawatt facility, for sure. Counsel for the petitioner argued that existing environmental clearances cover building construction but do not account for operational data center emissions and cooling demands. Now, the petition highlighted that the project site sits roughly 0.86 kilometers from a protected natural area, questioning the massive power and water consumption required from nearby reservoirs. Now, questions were also raised regarding the allocation of 160 acres belonging to the Simhachalam Devasthanam temple. The state government clarified that the temple land was not transferred or sold, but leased to the Andhra Pradesh Industrial Infrastructure Corporation, generating approximately 26 crore rupees annually for temple authorities. Now, state officials further emphasized that the 1 gigawatt AI hub will generate nearly 2 lakh direct and indirect jobs across cloud operations, server manufacturing, cybersecurity, and of course, power electronics. Now, the High Court has ordered state departments to file a consolidated response regarding all project approvals before resuming hearings next week. Now, for the residents of Visakhapatnam, the strain of a gigawatt-scale data center hits home at the tap and, of course, on the electricity bill. In a city already facing water rationing, diverting millions of liters of water daily to cool server racks risks depleting local reservoirs and lowering groundwater tables for surrounding communities. Furthermore, tapping into the local power grid for hyperscale computing could trigger severe energy load pressures, driving up utility costs and risking frequent power cuts for nearby households. Well then, here comes the then front page take. But before we get into that, Cypher 2026 is presented by IBM Bob. Yes, so IBM Bob presents Cypher 2026. It is India's biggest AI summit and expo. And please say hello as we draw the curtains on Bob. Yes, IBM Bob, your AI coding buddy that turns big ideas into working solutions at grease lightning speed. Code, create, and ship with Bob, because building should be more than just a vibe, my friend. And Bob gives you that. Yeah. Well then, back to the front page take. Now, the High Court refusing to halt construction while demanding consolidated environmental proof showcases the tightrope states must walk when hosting gigawatt-scale AI infrastructure. Now, while a $15 billion gigawatt campus promises massive economic growth, taking environmental clearances for basic building construction and applying them to water-guzzling, power-hungry data center operations honestly bypasses ecological scrutiny. Now, will strict judicial oversight force global tech giants to adopt closed-loop liquid cooling and off-grid renewables? Or will speed-to-market pressure keep them reliant on local water grids and traditional power? Well, if I'm not mistaken, I believe Google said that they will comply to everything when it came to any form of an environmental guideline. That was one. And I believe also Google is extremely proud of claiming its zero carbon footprint, and it has a target to go ahead and do so. Plus also, I believe local administration is assisting a lot of what Google is trying to do, because Google is also talking about building schools, building infrastructure, etc. So that's that side of the story. So I believe the question that I just asked you is the fact that, well, the pressure of going to market, will it at some level or the other subdue all of that? Or will Google remain extremely honest to its cause of the zero carbon footprint? Well, please do let us know. What are your thoughts in the comments below? Think AI, think AIM. The Trump administration is already trying to make H-1B hiring more expensive. Are you surprised? Well, now it is looking at changing how parts of the program itself work. A new Department of Homeland Security proposal could tighten scrutiny of employers, change eligibility for H-1B cap exemptions, and increase oversight of workers placed at third-party work sites. Now, the proposal is currently under White House review, and for Indian tech and AI professionals, well, this could matter far beyond another fee hike. DHS says the proposal would revise eligibility for cap-exempt H-1B positions, apply greater scrutiny to employers that have violated program requirements, and increase oversight of workers deployed at third-party locations. Now, that cap exemption change is especially important for AI and research. Universities, non-profit research organizations, and certain affiliated employers can qualify for H-1B positions that are generally outside the annual numerical cap. So if those eligibility rules change, the impact could reach research institutions that depend on very specialized international talent. But then, one thing is still uncertain. The actual regulatory text has not yet been released. Until DHS publishes the proposal, we honestly don't know exactly which employers or workers would truly get affected. Separately, the administration is proposing a $103,265 H-1B fee. But here's actually the critical distinction. That fee applies to cap-subject H-1B petitions. Cap-exempt organizations include qualifying universities and non-profit research institutions are not covered by this very specific fee that I just mentioned. So the very institutions that could be affected by changes to cap exemptions eligibility would not themselves be hit by this $103,265 charge under the fee proposal. Now that distinction truly needs to be highlighted enormously. And why so? For the AI ecosystem. Because, well, the issue isn't simply H-1Bs are getting more expensive. No, it is that different parts of America's AI talent pipeline could face very different rules. Now, for AI companies, universities and research labs, H-1B policy is ultimately about access to specialized people. Machine learning researchers, for example, chip engineers, robotics experts, and other technical talent. Now, greater scrutiny of third-party placements could definitely affect some hiring models. And, well, changes to cap exemptions could alter how research institutions recruit international specialists. At the same time, the huge proposed fee could make cap subject hiring much more expensive for companies that rely on the program. Now, this is happening alongside other H-1B changes, including a separate administration proposal to make selection more favorable toward higher paid workers. So, well, basically, this is increasingly becoming a broader policy shift, more scrutiny, potentially higher costs, and greater emphasis on which workers and employers get access to the program. Which then brings us to the front page take. But, well, before we go ahead and chug along as far as the front page take is concerned, a very important pit stop, which is the fact that IBM Bob presents Cypher 2026. It is India's biggest AI summit and expo. And please say hello to IBM Bob. Yes, the AI development partner helping developers turn bold ideas into real-world solutions faster. From code to deployment, build smarter and go beyond the vibe with IBM Bob. And of course, I don't think there is any cap exemption there. But anyway, that's just my thought. Well, now, of course, back to the front page take. Now, the interesting part isn't one rule in isolation. It's actually the cumulative effect on America's global talent advantage. Now, if companies face higher costs and tighter rules for international hiring, they may think twice about putting their most specialized teams in the United States. For AI, then, that matters because talent is already one of the industry's biggest constraints. Which brings me to the question. Is this protecting American jobs or, well, pricing America out of the global AI talent war altogether? I don't know about you, but I know one individual who is definitely trying to blow his own trumpet. Please do let us know what are your thoughts. Think AI, think AIM.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Point Break. I'm Antara. 4 days ago, Prime Minister Narendra Modi sat down with the founders and CEOs of 20 Indian space startups of national space on the National Space Day. 2 of those founders are in fact sitting with me right now as I speak. The room PM Modi met represented almost every layer of India's emerging space economy. I'm talking rockets, satellites, propulsion, orbital intelligence, debris removal, you name it, it was there in the room. Things that barely existed as commercial categories in India 5 years ago. Now, PM's message went beyond celebrating their technology. He, in fact, asked founders to make space useful for agriculture, for disaster management, for urban planning, for ordinary citizens. And he described a larger ambition here. India should create a quote-unquote aura capable of attracting space engineers, entrepreneurs, companies, and capital from across the world. 6 years after India opened the sector to private participation, that ambition no longer rests entirely on pitch decks. India has, in fact, around 440 registered space tech startups. Investment has reached approximately $618.5 million. Skyroot completed an orbital mission in July. ISRO is progressively transferring mature technologies to private industry. But having said that, global leadership requires, I would say, more than affordable engineering and policy support. It requires trusted technology, it requires repeatable missions, it requires international customers and companies capable of surviving failure. A decade from now, when the world thinks space, will it think India? That is essentially the question we'll try and answer in this episode of Point Break. I'm Antara. Let's get right into it. 2 founders who were in that room with the Prime Minister just a few days ago, they are with me right now, each building something very, very different, each, I would say, at a very different stage of the same journey. My first guest is Krishanu Acharya, who is the co-founder and CEO of Suhora Technologies, which is a Noida-based deep tech startup that turns satellite images into real-time intelligence for defense agencies, for disaster response authorities, and energy companies as well. He, in fact, is a master's in remote sensing and GIS from Vidyasagar University. He was also previously at DRDO. And he is someone who has said this very, very clearly, that India's private space story needs to increasingly move towards downstream applications, that the sustainable growth engine is downstream and not rockets. Krishanu, welcome to Point Break. Really good to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you, Antara.
And my second guest today is Dr. Chiranjeevi, who is the founder and CEO of Cosmoserve Space, which is a Hyderabad startup building, one of, I would say, the most ambitious things in India's space ecosystem, autonomous spacecraft for active debris removal. He, in fact, is a former ISRO scientist with 14 years at Vikram Sarabhai Space Center, Deputy Project Director of India's Gaganyaan mission, represented India at the Interagency Space Debris Coordination Committee, which is a global platform across 13 space agencies. He, in fact, left ISRO to build the solution to a problem he watched grow from the inside. Dr. Chiranjeevi, it's really good to have you here as well. Gentlemen, welcome to Point Break.
Thank you. Thank you, Antara.
All right. Let me start with what happened just a few days ago, right? You were both in that room with the Prime Minister. Now, before we go anywhere else, what is it that he said to you and what is it that stayed with you? Chiran, if you want to take this first.
No, I think the first question to me was what happened in Paris. Because I met Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji along with President Macron during Viva Tech, which happened in June. So I pitched to them, and he, to my surprise, he remembered our conversation and inquired about what happened after that. And then he was curious to know, did I get any collaborative opportunities from that region? So that was really surprising to me. So I think he also mentioned about space debris while during his concluding remarks that companies building in space debris, they should collaborate with environmental organizations working across the globe to scale up our solutions for these different environmental solutions, environmental problems. So I think these are the two great messages I take from that conversation.
Okay, all right. Thank you for that, Chiran. Krishanu, anything that you want to share?
Yes. So I think, before that, what he had asked us, specifically to Suhora, I think worthwhile to mention that, the warmth that we felt during that, meeting. So it was not like that we were meeting somebody, a prime minister of this country. It really felt like we are meeting someone in a very elder in our family who is taking a note of what we've been doing. And of course, guiding us what we should be doing further going forward, etc. So that particular experience was, very, very delighting. That what I can share first. As a company, of course, we've been working on a lot of national security program, some of the other security and strategic applications. We briefed him what we did in last couple of years, and of course he pointed out, go meet the NSA, and we spoke with the NSA, had a small briefing, etc. as well. So and that was the thing for us specifically. But what I can also tell you in terms of his understanding of the technology, because what he was doing while he was in Gujarat, using space as a science to optimize as the state was operating was visible, and he was connecting some of the applications he was doing some to optimize locations of network towers to some schools, etc. He was mentioning. So those are that we know instantly he has a eyes and ears of the technology, and he also appreciates. So these are some of the I think I'll remember now. So yeah.
All right. Thank you for sharing that, Prashant. It sounds fantastic. In fact, starting the conversation here, Prime Minister Modi wants India to create a global aura, right? His words, for space. Now, not just a large domestic market, but a place the world comes to build. I would say that requires India to be known for something distinctive, something the world cannot replicate easily elsewhere. Krishanu, my first question is to you. You've said that India's story needs to move, more towards downstream applications. What must India actually become globally known for? Because affordable launches alone won't, I would say, create that aura. So where do you land on that?
Okay, so see, we are not on the upstream as of now. So affordable launches, quite a few companies, as you already know, from starting from SpaceX, they've been doing for years now. That's something definitely we have to see how competitive we can remain, going forward. But what we can do quickly as a country is what we do again. Is the downstream applications. So we can use, our capabilities to use satellite data, a lot of other AI, compute, etc., and tackle the real world problem. I'll give you some examples. The way we as a company, Suhora, does. We create solutions for critical infrastructure. We built ISR capabilities, which delivers solutions from national security to disaster to energy infrastructure, where space became one of the input, and that becomes almost a centralized theme. How it can give a large area monitoring capabilities. So I think we as a country, India, should focus not only those high ambitious projects like what Chiran is also doing, but also we have to keep our feet grounded and deliver these real world problems, solutions to those real world problems, like agriculture, forest, disaster. PM Modi in himself, he emphasized about the agriculture a lot, environmental a lot, right? So space has solutions and it can deliver a significant solutions towards those applications. So I think going forward, we as a country has to focus on those low-lying areas, having success around that. Looking at the heterogeneity of the country, the way India's problems are, look at the, from Kashmir to Kanyakumari, the landscape, the demography, the people, the nature of the people, the environment, everything changes from, a few thousand kilometers to kilometers, right? So if you can solve these problems in-house in the country, and which is unique enough, we can then export it to the many other areas, many other countries. Right. And I think we as a country has to focus on that as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you for answering that. Chiran, I believe you left a 14-year ISRO career to build an active debris removal startup, right? Which Indian space capability could actually become globally indispensable over the next decade? And does India really have what it takes to, sort of lead in the frontier space markets like this rather than following markets that have already been defined?
Yeah, my opening statement with Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji was, everyone in this room, most of them, of my friends, are building rockets and sending satellites. And I decided to remove them once they are dead in space. So that is the bigger perspective which I need to bring in here, because last 7 decades, 20,000 objects were sent to space. And now we are talking of sending, in just 1 decade, 1 million satellites. So the problem, you can just imagine how exponentially large it is going to be in very soon. So this is the bigger problem. And then India has built this ecosystem, the technological capabilities within the country, where we can get the best precision manufacturing done in India, and we can get them at a very low cost. So these are the factors which will add up to the technologies which we want to build. Now, we are not behind on robotics. We are not behind in advanced applying artificial intelligence to different other applications. So we bring in these capabilities where are already existing in India, build solutions, and now these tech capabilities, when they come together and solving some solutions, I think will be second to none in this particular domain.
Okay. Speaking of solutions, Chiran, and this is a question for the both of you, what would actually, prove India that it has become a global space hub rather than just a growing domestic market? On what fronts are we talking when we say improvement?
So from my side, if you take the primary market, if you take it, it's going to be US. So I just want to give some comparisons between the US and the Indian ecosystem. So in US, if you see, it's always about heavy lift launch vehicles or the capability to send crew to space. While we are not competing in that particular domain, we are very good at building the small satellite rockets and then taking these small satellites to dedicated orbits at an affordable cost. So this is the advantage which we are bringing. So something similar to that, we are also like launch vehicles propulsion system. So we are also good in propulsion systems. So the solid propulsion, we have mastered in solid propulsion. We have mastered in liquid propulsion. Now the semi cryogenics are coming up. Cryogenics we already have mastered. So the propulsion systems ecosystem is also really good in India. What Krishana is doing, the applications, because we have got 1.4 billion people. So they all require a lot of solutions. And Vikram Sarabhai in 1960s, he said that we should be second to none when it comes to applying space applications to the common man. So I think we have that potential to build great applications from India.
Absolutely. Krishanu, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'll jump on an example that what we have in front of us. ISRO built a product in last, I'll say 10 years back called Bhuvan. It's everybody knows Google Earth, right? So you must be using in your own some form of, Google Earth to access your areas, house, your local situations, sometimes series, etc. India also has a platform. It's called Bhuvan. It's ISRO built platform where India's problem statement, starting from our localized problem like say, agriculture, road infrastructure, environment, mining, flood. So it's not only a static database where it shows some bunch of satellite data, so you can see your house on the map, but it also gives you analytics. It tells you, which school are available next to your house, say for example, or if you want to go to some banks, where those banks are available, similar to Google Maps, but much richer than Google Earth, delivering real world problem solutions to the problems that we have as a country. And it been used by government of India, many other sectors, you name it, ministries, they are using this day and night. So why I'm saying this? This is an example that what we can create for the country, and so this is one of the fantastic example where a space analytics, space data, it comes and put in the right use, it can solve a lot of people's problems. So that's definitely one of the areas, applications, as Chiran was also mentioning. But what I can also tell, we've been using space and space analytics as a user for decades, but also now we are one of the examples. So we have created a platform called Mirka. It's a maritime domain awareness platform. It covers almost 10 million square kilometer of our Indian Ocean regions, where it utilizes a lot of satellites, a lot of AI, a lot of other electronics intelligence databases to extract information like say dark ships, track it, and try to identify what it means for the users, right? So those kind of applications are the areas where I think not only because I'm the downstream side of the story, but still I think this is what we can export quickly, easily, creating a lot of success stories commercially and also I'll say politically as well. I keep on saying, success of the space ecosystem lies on the hand of the downstream applications. It actually happens on the world, in the earth, right? So I think, bunch of applications where it touches, human lives through these kind of national security, critical infrastructure, disaster, agriculture. These are the areas, definitely are the areas where we should be focusing.
Okay. All right. Thank you for answering that, Krishan and Shiran. I would like to steer the conversation here slightly and talk about whether private industry can scale what ISRO built. Because ISRO is progressively, I would say, stepping back from routine manufacturing, right? SSLV technology has already been transferred to HAL. PSLV and LVM3 could follow. Now, the vision is for ISRO to essentially focus on research and frontier missions, while private companies, they manufacture, own, and they commercialize mature systems. Now, I would say that is a significant transition in itself. ISRO built these systems over decades with institutional knowledge that is genuinely hard to transfer. Chiran, again, you spent 14 years inside ISRO. Can private Indian companies actually manufacture and operate systems like SSLV and PSLV reliably, or would you say that the institutional knowledge is what makes those rockets work harder to transfer than it looks? Where do you stand on that?
think if you consider the rockets, right, more than 90% of the rocket parts are built by the industry already. So which has been happening already for a long time. Now, but the final integration and the final mission operations is still with ISRO uh, till few years back. Now, SSLV or PSLV are being transferred to the industry. But these industries are like already working on this space activities for a long time. The consortium of HAL and L&T or other companies, if you take also, they're already working on this flight hardware. So they know the quality requirements of building something for space. Now that final integration and the final mission operations or launching operations, I think that is where the hand holding of ISRO to the industry is very much required, and that's already happening. So the transition is not just going to be we hand over everything to the industry and industry will do it. So the transition will be through some particular missions where both of them will work together while the knowledge is being transferred from ISRO to the industry. And once the ISRO is completely confident that the industry can handle it independently, that is when you will see the mission independently being launched by these industries.
Right. So you would say that there is certainly an optimistic start to it.
Yes. Yes.
All right, all right. Thank you for that. Krishanu, Suhora works across satellite data from multiple providers. You see how the ecosystem actually functions. Is Indian private industry ready to take on this responsibility, or do you think from your vantage point that we are moving faster than the capability warrants?
So I'll just again fall back to an example.
Yeah, please.
A couple of years back, we actually submitted our proposal to one of the very critical apex organizations in the country. I can't name it. Sorry. So who are the contenders against us? I'll just give example. Bunch of Western companies for our border surveillance and national security requirement. Government of India stood firm. Okay, if a company which has even a 50% capability of what we are getting from the western side of the deliveries of the service providers, we like to bet on it. But so 2023 is the year. Now we are going with the third year of executions with the same customer with almost double down to what we have started with. So I think we are not only achieving more at this moment to what, or rather whatever the users are asking, we are not at par, but we are achieving more with the users. Our years of experience, as I know, this falls back to what you asked Chiran earlier about the ISRO, right?
Yeah.
We have a bunch of ISRO people which we take help from. These are the people we love ISRO, right? What they have achieved, the feat they have achieved, it's unbeatable, right? So we go and fall back to the resource pack they have created, the tech stack they have created. We use them. We use them as the foundation layer, then take it from there to deliver more. So that's precisely what we have done, and I'm pretty sure we as an industry are not only ready for the domestic use cases, but we are ready for the global use cases as well. Okay. Some of the success stories, I'm pretty sure that 20 companies were there. Some of the companies were also exporting to many other countries. That speaks loud that yes, we are now ready for taking not only showing the red eyes to the Western companies, but also making it I'll say standing equal with them. So yeah, so I think that makes sense. Yeah.
All right. India's clearest advantage in space, I think, is cost. But international customers don't really decide on cost alone, right? They need reliability, they need frequency, they need long-term support, they need trust that the company they are contracting will be there in the next 5 years. Krishanu, again, Suhora competes directly with the US and Israeli geospatial firms. When you are in those particular competitive situations, would you say that the cost is actually the deciding factor, or is it something harder to build, like the concept of trust and track record for that matter?
So my personal also thesis is cost opens the first door. Of course, you have to be cost effective when you are starting something very I'll say otherwise dominated by other companies' space, right? But you cannot stay there for long. You have to build from cost effectiveness to trust and the cadence and the capability, right? So cost to value journey has to happen. Cost is definitely is not the space that no company like Suvara wants to play. We again, our existence is the biggest example how this transition happened from cost to the to the value. When these kind of strategic users, the apex users, who the country's decision of a strategic nature depends on these kind of platform, it has to happen on the trust. It has to happen on the the SLS. It has to happen on the the I'll say moat you create around that people trust, etc. So I think one sec. Yeah, I'm so sorry. There was some power
Happens
outage.
to the best of
Yeah,
us.
so what I was saying, cost is the first step, but you have to take the journey from cost to the value, and that's a long, painstakingly journey, but it's a very important journey for any company like Suhara. I'm pretty sure Chiranjeev also concurred to that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
depends on which application we are talking of. In your particular application, I think cost comes first, the downstream application. But if someone is building a satellite worth 50 crores or 100 crores, they certainly require a most reliable vehicle, launch vehicle to carry their satellite than the
Yeah.
cost. So there, the reliability and the trust plays a bigger role than the cost. So again, it all depends on which aspect of the space we are talking of.
Interesting.
Yes.
Interesting. Chiran, the active debris removal market is projected at $5.9 billion, right? Cosmos Service targeting 90% lower cost than the competitors. But this is a market where I would say trust is everything, right? You're asking satellite operators and governments to let your spacecraft approach their assets. How do you really build that sort of trust as an Indian startup that wasn't there a couple of years ago? How is it that you work around it?
So first to correct that number of $5.9 billion estimation. So that estimation was there before Elon Musk has filed an application to launch 1 billion satellites. So
Okay.
when he filed an application to launch 1 billion satellites, so all the numbers were all wrong now. So these
Oh, all
numbers are
right.
going to be much, much larger very soon.
Can you give us the projected number then, Chiran?
No,
You
no
have
one
any?
knows because the projections are yet to happen after he
Oh,
files this
okay.
application.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
And then coming to your question of how do you build that trust? I think the
Yeah.
trust will come only by seeing. So we need to take our technology demonstrations in space, successfully prove them on multiple applications or multiple occasions, and that builds the trust to the customers. So we have the conversations with all the customers, but all of them are waiting to see when our product will be launched to space, and they see the real data. So that's when the trust will be built, and we are focused on doing multiple technology demonstrators for the next 2 years.
Right. Chiran, was there any sort of apprehension, any hesitancy when you first had this conversation? Because again, this is something not everybody has even attempted at, like letting alone attempt, they have not even thought about it. So was there some sort of apprehension in the room?
Yeah, of course, of course. Wherever I start this conversation, the first question comes to me is who will pay for it? Who will pay for the removal? So that's a very common question comes. And then very recently, the US federal government has brought this 5-year rule, which states that any satellite operator in the world should remove their dead satellites within 5 years of their end of life. So that has created the commercial market now. So because of which people are now building solutions in this particular domain. And
Okay.
this particular rule is going to be adopted across the world, across all spacefaring nations. So there
All
is going
right.
to be a demand, and now you need to prove that you'll be able to do that. So that's more important now.
Right. Thank you for answering that, Chiran. Krishanu, from your vantage point, can India retain its cost advantage while paying global salaries and investing in advanced infrastructure? Because, as the ecosystem matures, costs are bound to rise, right? Is the cost advantage structural or temporary and declining? What do you have to say on that?
I think it's structural. It's structural because essentially this market was dominated by people where the premium was paid at multiple X first. So if you want to break that that structure at the fundamental level, you have to give enough incentives to the users. Now I'm talking of the homegrown application, homegrown use cases, right? So that I think it starts with something which first of all starts as a price vantage point, then it goes towards the value vantage point, then the trust. When the trust is built, and this trust is very well earned, and it's very hard earned, by the way. Once the trust, you become in my space like ISR, right? So if you become a very trustworthy ISR platform, which is developing and delivering mission critical applications to many of the contingencies, say for example, that trust itself drive a lot of premiumness, and that will bound to happen if you really focus on the right side of the journey, right?
Right.
So that's what I personally think. It's a structural change.
Okay.
It will happen with the time, and of course you have to keep on building and proving, and keep on hand-holding often,
Right.
because often the users don't want to understand the technology behind it. They want to understand the way they wanted to see a problem statement, right? Once you take those everything together and keep on taking the journey, yes, the value will definitely come. So
All right. I also want to talk about the space tech startups here. I think 440 is the number. 440 registered space tech startups is an impressive number, but most are at an early stage, and a much smaller group has operational products and recurring customers and international contracts for that matter. The question is whether India produces several globally significant space companies or consolidates around a handful while the rest struggle. Krishanu, again, the question is to you: how many Indian space startups have actually progressed from demonstrations to, I would say, sustainable commercial operations, and which segment is closest to genuine global scale?
See, Antara, if you see 5 years back, the space tech company maybe
Less than 10.
or less than 10. What's fair saying?
10.
Yeah. So 10 to 440. So itself is a huge success. It's exponential growth in numbers, and that's one. Second, space is hard. It always has a gestation period. There's a learning curve. You have to give that time to those, to the people. We bringing back to our company again. We before we started Suhora, we already had fair amount of expertise like Dr. Chiran, right? So I was with a company, a European company managing their Southeast Asia market, knowing the market, and of course taken the clue from there, right? The new companies, are definitely, out of 440, there's a very few are commercially successful today, but do we expect them to be commercially successful in next last couple of years? Then if it is so, then we are expecting an elephant to give and birth in a few months. So similar to that. So I will cautiously, I'll be very cautious in that sense. So we have to give them time first.
Okay.
Space is tough. Space is bound to fail.
Fair.
You have to give that time to that as well. But definitely, in the sense, the few companies where the new payloads are coming, quite a few companies has launched their payloads. We're using quite a few of them. Pixel is, of course, definitely is one of the greatest, example. Of course, Skyroot is example. So that I will keep us enough fuel to keep on building. There are some setbacks as well, of course, and that's the part of the game.
Certainly.
I think we are doing great in terms of the journey itself. So this journey requires time, and we have to be patient enough, Antara. Unless we wanted to do something very minuscule and very small. If you want to create something really meaningful, then you have to give it time.
Understood. Understood.
But,
Chiran, Cosmoserve has backing from Ram Shriram, one of, I would say, Google's earliest investors. You, in fact, signed an MOU as well with Dawn Aerospace for, refueling collaboration. You are essentially building global partnerships, which, like we were just discussing, it's not something that is, quite widespread. What is still the hardest door to open for you? What is your biggest bottleneck?
I think understanding the context in a different geographical location itself is the biggest bottleneck. So, still I'll be able to talk very well with a space person in a different domain, different geographical location. But then understanding context and getting into a conversation in a different geographical location, still that I feel is a bottleneck to crack the deals in those geographical locations. So now, as you said, like great people are there in our cap table. We have Ram Shri Ram, a very early investor in Google, Shakti BC, Alan Rutledge, Om Ventures, all of them backed us. So they are opening some doors in different geographical locations. And Dawn Aerospace, we signed an MOU to do a combined refueling mission in future. So like that, we are now talking to different companies to do a collaborative mission to prove our technologies in space, and also to serve them whenever they require a debris removal or a dead satellite removal from space.
Understood. Understood, Chiran. Chiran, and of course, I'm talking to the both of you here. Both companies here work with or are targeting government customers, right? Government demand is often essential while emerging companies, they build flight heritage, commercial credibility, and recurring revenue. But Indian government procurement has, I would say, a sort of a reputation for being sometimes slow and not designed for startups with limited runway. Chiran, the debris removal market doesn't really, at least did not until now, exist in India. ISRO is not currently a customer for active debris removal either. How do you really build a business around a problem that everyone agrees is important, everyone agrees exists, but nobody is currently paying to solve?
I think one thing echoed in the room in the Prime Minister, along with the Prime Minister, when we all worked together, one thing echoed in that room was most of us are building the technology before even the demand even exists.
Okay.
I think that is very clear, because when the demand is already existing and then you start building the technology will take its own time to get matured, and by then there will be a lot of competition and you will not have that first mover advantage. So we have a great conviction that this is going to be a really large market, and whomsoever are having that conviction are backing us, and then we are all moving forward. Now with this, we are building the technology, and we expect the technologies will get matured by 2028. So by then the markets also will be evolving. So when these two matches, that is when I think there will be great synergy in the business.
Understood. Understood. Krishanu, Suhora works in defense and disaster management with both government adjacent markets. Is Indian government procurement fast enough and also honest enough for a startup at your stage, or is it still a system that is designed for large established vendors? What do you think?
I think a lot of change has happened in last few years. In the existence of Suhora itself, when 2018 we started. So even initial few years when we as a company we didn't have any credible I'll say reputations, but we started demonstrating certain capabilities to certain departments. They didn't start the door on our face. They started seeing is there a credible outcome is coming from in-house, right? I think this is the nature of the based defense. If you say national security, they they always require the best product. So it's bound to happen. They will compare you with what is available at the best in the country in the market, right? I think that where you have to, the competition might feel a little little irrational, right?
Yeah.
So that is something I will, hop on rather than, looking at the bigger institutional player. Of course, bigger institutional player started somewhere and they have reached to a institution by delivering certain, cadence, certain, trust to their users. We also, so what I think, of course, the Indian procurement, cycle is different, I'll say, but it has changed a lot, and it has, not side away to support government, also Indian startups in recent recent past, sorry. So I think it has changed. It will change more. It has shown its trust to look inwards for heavy duty applications, heavy duty operations as well. And it poised to change further, Antara. And it is I can see that is happening in many of the procurement mechanism, many of the way they are started. In the defense itself, there's a IDEX program, there's many other programs, right? So that's how they're making opening many doors. How the new companies can come and try if you have a capabilities, they will listen and eventually they will also procure from you.
Right. I also want to talk about whether or not space can create, space technology can create that sort of value or not, because this was specifically what Prime Minister also asked the founders to think about, right? Make space useful for agriculture, for disaster management, urban planning, ordinary citizens. That is a very different conversations from your regular rockets and satellites, right? It's about whether the technology actually, reaches the people who need it the most. Krishanu, Sohora turns satellite data into intelligence for defense and disaster response. Why haven't satellite applications achieved mass adoption in Indian agriculture and insurance yet? Because the data exists, the need exists, but the adoption by itself hasn't really happened at scale. Why do you think that is?
So that's actually, it's a multi-fold question, Santara. So for decades, we've been pushing, either data or some tools to exploit the data. What a user, say, you said about agriculture, right? Say agriculture, I'm not talking about the farmers. Farmers is a little too much at this moment. If you say a state government which has a requirement to monitor the agriculture yield, say for example, some state governments, some smaller state government, right? They don't need a data. They need an informations. That informations which can be utilized for their, to optimize the resources. If there's some, some water scarcity, some, some example like say, some hailstorm have happened. You have to compensate your, farmers in a scientific manner. So that piece of intelligence was missing. We used to deliver them data, and the data to informations, this journey itself is a long haul journey.
Right.
And, so the establishment of a product, a science and the applications was never established the way it is happening now. Today, I'll just give an example.
Yeah.
I'm dialing from, Noida, and, in winter, Noida, I don't know if there's a very peculiar issues called stubble burning, right? So stubble burning happens every single day. And now we are, helping some of the customers, in this case, say Haryana government, they use this space technology to track and monitor every single day where are the farms are being, being burnt. Not to penalize, of course, the farmers, to sensitize and give them rewards if they are not doing, some different manners are there. So this kind of intelligence is available today. It was not there earlier. So this is one. Second, of course, space data, it has its own cost. The satellite captures data. It comes down to the Earth through ground stations. It has its own way of processing and then comes back to the user's hand. It has, first of all, the resources that we used to have, the Indian satellites, say for example, ISRO's IRS, sensors are handful. If you really need a operational level data, it has to be enough satellite to capture it. And that's first. Second, it has to be making a commercial viable product enough to people to buy it. So that was also not a very well established, which has changed in recent past. Now we have enough satellite, some of them free, some of them, commercially viable, which can be, if used properly, can help users, in this case, some say agriculture users or say disaster management authorities, to use that real-time data for, real-time applications. So this was not there earlier, which is changing rapidly now, and we have already, as I said time and again, we are one of the example how this is happening.
Right. Thank you for answering that, Krishanu. Chiran, debris removal again, I'll talk about that again, is a public good problem, right? A cleaner orbit benefits everyone. But having said that, it's hard to capture payment from beneficiaries. How do you really build a business around something whose value is diffuse and whose customers are still sort of trying to figure out whether or not they should be paying for it?
So yeah, now I usually give this example of your car getting stuck on a road. You can't leave the car there. You need to call a tow van to remove that car so that the
Correct.
road is cleared. Otherwise, you will be heavily fined for not removing the car, and someone
Correct.
else will remove the car for you. So such kind of regulations are in place now, very recently. So that is forcing the satellite operators not leaving their dead satellites in space and removing it from orbit. So that is one kind of market. That is the commercial market. And space debris problem is also something similar to the climate change problem. There are no boundaries in space, like for the climate also, right? So now they should, for climate change, you have a Green Climate Fund, which collect taxes from all the countries who are creating that pollution, and use these funds to do or help the companies to mitigate these climate change problems. So something similar to that is also being discussed under United Nations Office of Outer Space Activities, where all these countries, all countries or the satellite operators, they'll be funding these missions to remove the legacy objects or the bigger rocket bodies which are creating threat to the operational satellites for a long time. So by removing that, then everyone will get benefited. So it should be a publicly funded mission where everyone will get benefited. So these are the two aspects. One is from the government or intergovernment agencies, and the second one is the commercial agents, commercial operators.
Okay, understood. Krishanu, my next question is to you. Could solving India's problems be the pathway to creating, I would say, globally relevant space products? Because India has its own set of problems, right? Disaster management, border surveillance, agriculture monitoring, that the world also has. Does building for India first create a genuinely exportable solution?
That's the only way, actually.
Okay.
I'll again fall back to some of the examples. Maritime domain awareness. India has long maritime areas. Actively, we have to monitor almost a little north of 10 million square kilometer per day. If you solve this for the country, where we track almost every dark ships which are operating at, say, Indian Ocean region, you can very easily scale it to the globe. You can do it, for any country you can think of. Be it our Asian countries to our European countries, because thankfully, and satellites are global in nature. While it captures Indian data, it can capture any part of the world. Of course, the orbits is optimized for certain country need. That's a different story. But there's enough satellite providers, and every satellite has to go in an orbit which can capture, and then if you use it for the way it is delivering data and use it properly, it can deliver the same set of solutions. Now coming back to the usefulness, right? At the deep inside every country's every critical infrastructure you can think of for any country are the same. What we are as a country, we are dealing with our threats to the country, our the critical infrastructure need like agriculture, etc. is the need for any country you can think of. Of course, as a geopolitical and the deterrence point of view, every country has its own attitudes towards this problem. But underneath is the same problem. Okay. Second, the heterogeneity of the country. If you build for the country, I'll just give an example. The way it is there, or Haryana government, or North Indian part of the country, like say stubble burning. It's very unique. But you know what? This is available. This stubble burning issue is a kind of global phenomena. Indo-Gangetic countries, at least many countries I can think of right now, are having similar issues. If you solve it for the country, you can solve it for the for the rest of the other countries as well. So I think yes. So if you solve it for the country, you can you have created enough success stories for you to export to any other countries.
Right, got it. I also want to talk about whether or not India can finance that long space tech journey. I'm talking factories, launch fleets, satellite constellations, and orbital infrastructure that require far more capital than prototypes and demonstration missions. Now, the 1,000 crore rupee government-backed venture fund is a start, yes, of course. But space tech journeys are long, arduous, and expensive. And patient capital in India, I would say, is still scarce. Chiran, my question is to you here. Cosmoserve raised $3.17 million in pre-seed funding. That is genuinely early-stage capital for a company building autonomous spacecraft. How far does that actually get you, and what do you think is I would say, the next major capital challenge for you?
I think with the 3.17 million, we completed one technology demonstration in space already, and we are planning few more technology demonstrations, and we are also raising the second round. So the capital availability is there, but your primary question is like, this capital availability is there for the technology demonstrations alone or for commercialization? I think that more is already happening in India. So many venture capital firms are now looking at space as one of the interesting sectors. So two aspects to that. One is SpaceX IPO, the largest in the world. So that is an eye opener for any financiers to think that this is the sector which they have to focus now. And the second one is Skyroot's Vikram 1 successful mission on the first maiden flight. And then government supporting all the deep tech firms through a specific fund, a deep tech fund or RDI, research and development fund. Now, these all things are adding up, and then most of the capitals, venture capitalists or the angel investors or the high net worth individuals, they are now looking at India or the Indian space tech startups to invest in their companies. So I think we can eventually move from just technology demonstrations to building a bigger factories and doing bigger missions. If you see Skyroot's factories, they build 3 factories. One is 50,000 square feet. The second one is the 2 lakh square feet, and the much bigger facilities are coming up now.
Absolutely. Chiran, it's a small follow-up question on that. Could dependence on foreign capital shift ownership and IP outside India? I'll tell you why I'm asking that. Now, Ram Shriram is American. Dawn Aerospace, I believe, is from New Zealand. As you build international partnerships, how do you ensure that that the strategic value by itself, it stays in the country, in India itself?
I think we need to do it strategically. We need to build when something is built in India. I think you need to register your IP also here in India. And when something is built in their country, you need to build your IP in that country. So it all depends on where you are building and what for you are using that. So we place ourselves, and whenever we are building something to the Indian government, or whenever we are building something to the defense forces, we ensure that the tech is developed in India and registered in India.
Okay, understood. I'll have to wrap this segment now in the interest of time, but I do have one final question before I let you both go. A decade from now, will India be known as a country that builds space technologies affordably, or as a place where the future of space is actually being built? And what is it that what does your company need to do to make the second story come true? Chiran, if you want to take this first.
Yeah, see, one example I want to give. In early 1960s, when humans traveled to space, we just started with a sounding rocket, a small rocket sending to space. So from then on, we became the first country to go to Mars in our maiden first flight. So many firsts were there. We were the first country to go to South Pole of Moon by Vikram lander. So we start late, but then eventually we'll be able to lead in certain segments. So that advantage will certainly be there with India for a long time. And over the next decade, I'm sure that India will be leading not in the entire space sector, but at least some of these verticals in the space sector. Certainly, India will be leading. I'm 100% sure about that. And the in-orbit servicing, assembly, and manufacturing. This is a bigger umbrella which is very much essential for space sustainable operations. And Cosmoso is actively working on creating a bigger solutions for all these in-orbit servicing and assembly and manufacturing in space.
Understood, Chiran. Thank you for that. Krishanu, anything that you might want to add?
Yeah, so I think for the last quite a few decades, Indian IT industries has shown okay, we can build and we can deliver for the world, right? So there's a fair amount of trust has been created around that, and this definitely space is not an exception in this case. We have to pick and choose what we do at the first. I think downstream applications are the ones which we can quickly use it to become in world's number one players. It supports world's problem, a large scale I'll say global scale solutions, delivering critical solutions for the users. If you see SDGs, sustainable development goals, so there's at least 4 SDGs where it connects directly with the space, right? I think if you focus on those areas, and the India's trust, India remain on that trustworthy partners to quite a few countries. In the G20, it's definitely one of the area we should be looking at, BRICS, etc. So I'm pretty sure we can become at least downstream number one player to start with, then work on the other sectors of the space sectors.
Absolutely. Well, Chiran and Krishanu, thank you so much for your time. It's been an incredibly invigorating conversation. And ladies and gentlemen, whoever is tuned in right now, India's aura for space won't really be created by a government announcement. It will be created when the world looks at what's coming out of India and cannot easily find it anywhere else. And I believe that work is already underway, and thank you to Chiran and Krishanu for throwing light on this subject so beautifully. Thank you so much, gentlemen. It's been a great conversation. And ladies and gentlemen, whoever is tuned in right now, thank you for watching. This is Point Break. I'm Antara, and I'll see you again next episode.